My boyfriend treated every woman like a princess except me. I decided to become a stranger to him. I dated Ryan for 2 years and watched him open doors for every woman except me. He'd run ahead to hold the door for random women at stores while letting it slam in my face. He'd help female coworkers carry boxes while watching me struggle with groceries. He'd pull out chairs for waitresses but let me seat myself. He'd compliment strangers on their outfits while telling me I looked fine when I spent hours getting ready. When I mentioned it, he'd say I didn't need special treatment because we were past that phase and real love meant being comfortable. He said other women needed kindness because they weren't as secure as me. The coffee shop we went to every morning became my daily torture. Ryan would chat with the barista Melissa for 10 minutes about her art degree and her cat and her weekend plans while I stood behind him holding both our laptops. He'd remember her birthday and bring her flowers. He knew her coffee order by heart and would surprise her with her favorite muffin. When it was my turn to order, Ryan would be on his phone. He never remembered I changed from lattes to cappuccinos 6 months ago. He never noticed when I stopped ordering anything because it hurt too much to watch him care about a stranger more than me. His coworker Jessica needed rides when her car broke down, and Ryan volunteered immediately. He'd leave early to pick her up with coffee and breakfast. He'd take detours to show her scenic routes. He'd play her favorite music and adjust the temperature so she was comfortable. When my car wouldn't start, Ryan told me to take the bus because he had an important meeting. I took an expensive rideshare while he drove past me with Jessica laughing in the passenger seat where I used to sit before she needed rides. At restaurants, Ryan would notice when other women's water glasses were empty and flag the server. He'd recommend dishes to women at nearby tables. He'd send drinks to groups of women celebrating birthdays. But he'd forget to order my appetizer and eat his entire meal, while mine came out cold because the kitchen forgot, and he didn't notice I wasn't eating. He'd be too busy making sure the woman at the next table got extra napkins to see I'd been waiting 20 minutes for silverware. His friend's girlfriend Amy mentioned she collected vinyl records, and Ryan spent 3 months hunting down a rare pressing of her favorite album for her birthday. He drove 2 hours to get it and had it professionally framed. For my birthday, he grabbed a gift card from the pharmacy on the way to my party. It still had the price sticker on it and was for a store I never shopped at. He said gift cards were practical and I was too old for romantic gestures. Amy got a 3-paragraph birthday post about how she brought light into the world. I got a text that said happy birthday with no punctuation. The gym was the worst because Ryan would spot for any woman who asked, spending 40 minutes helping them perfect their form. He'd write workout plans for them and text them encouragement. He'd bring extra water bottles for women who forgot theirs. When I asked him to help me with weights, he said I should figure it out myself because independence was important. He watched me struggle with equipment I didn't understand while explaining proper deadlift technique to a woman who hadn't even asked for help. She had perfect form already, but Ryan insisted on demonstrating with his hands on her waist for guidance. Valentine's Day broke me completely. Ryan sent flowers to his mom, his sister, his assistant, and the elderly woman who lived next door. He said Valentine's was about showing all women they were valued. He helped his single female friends feel special with chocolates and cards about deserving love. I got nothing. When I asked, he said we were above commercial holidays and our love didn't need validation. Then he spent an hour on the phone comforting his ex-girlfriend Haley, who was sad about being single, telling her she was amazing and any man would be lucky to have her while I sat across from him crying silently. That's when I decided to become a stranger to him. I stopped responding to his texts immediately. I stopped cooking his favorite meals. I stopped washing his clothes with mine. I stopped remembering his schedule. I stopped caring about his bad days. I stopped laughing at his jokes. I stopped touching him casually. I stopped being available. I became exactly what I was to him, nothing special. But I became the most interesting stranger he'd ever met. I'd dress up and go out without telling him where. I'd have long phone conversations in another room laughing at jokes he couldn't hear. I'd leave the house early and come back late without explanation. I'd be polite but distant, treating him like a roommate I barely knew. Ryan started noticing immediately. He'd ask where I was going, and I'd say out the same way he'd say fine when I asked how I looked. He'd try to hold my hand, and I'd pull away, saying I needed space to be comfortable. He'd want to talk about us, and I'd be too busy helping strangers, opening doors for everyone at the store, carrying groceries for elderly people, complimenting random women on their shoes. I became the person he was to everyone else while treating him like he treated me. Within 2 weeks, Ryan was desperate. I grabbed my purse off the kitchen counter, and Ryan appeared in the doorway, blocking my path like he used to stand in front of other women to hold doors open for them. He asked where I was going, and his voice had this edge I'd never heard before, something between worried and demanding. I told him I was meeting a friend and kept walking, forcing him to step aside. He followed me down the hallway asking which friend, asking where we were going, asking when I'd be back. I stopped at the front door and looked at him the way he used to look at his phone when I asked how I looked before dates. I set out and watched his face do this thing where his mouth opened slightly, and his eyebrows pulled together. He reminded me about all those times he told me about his long talks with Melissa at the coffee shop, except he never actually told me anything. He just had them while I stood there holding laptops like his assistant. He tried to say that was different, but I was already opening the door. He asked if he could come with me, and I said no, the same way he said no when I asked to join him and his coworkers for drinks last month. I walked to my car and he stood in the doorway watching me leave without saying goodbye. The next morning, I got to the coffee shop 15 minutes before our usual time. Ryan was still looking for parking when I walked in and saw Melissa behind the counter doing that thing where she ties her apron and tucks her hair behind her ear at the same time. I went straight to the counter instead of waiting for Ryan like I used to. Melissa looked surprised to see me alone, and I asked about her art show that was supposed to open next week. Her whole face lit up, and she started telling me about the gallery space she found, and how she'd been working on this series of paintings about urban isolation. I complimented her new haircut, which was shorter on one side and had these purple streaks that caught the light. She touched it self-consciously and said she just got it done yesterday. I asked what inspired her paintings, and she launched into this whole explanation about feeling disconnected in crowded spaces. I nodded and asked questions about her process and her favorite pieces. She seemed almost confused that I was actually listening and engaging instead of standing silently behind Ryan while he monopolized her time. She told me about the opening reception and said I should come. I said I'd try to make it and meant it. Through the window, I saw Ryan finally find a parking spot 3 blocks away. Ryan rushed in looking flustered and walked straight to where I usually stood behind him in line. But I was already at a table near the window, not our usual corner booth where we always sat. I had my coffee in front of me, a cappuccino I'd ordered and paid for myself, and I was scrolling through my phone with this small smile because Valeria had sent me a funny meme about workplace dynamics. Ryan stood at the counter looking between me and Melissa with his mouth slightly open. He tried to order for both of us the way he used to, saying he'd get my usual, but Melissa pointed at me already sitting down with my drink. He ordered just for himself and kept glancing at me like he was waiting for me to explain. I didn't look up from my phone. He brought his coffee to my table instead of our usual spot, and sat down across from me without asking. I kept scrolling. He asked why I didn't wait for him, and I said I was thirsty. He asked why I was sitting here instead of our usual table, and I said this spot had better light. He tried to start a conversation about his morning, but I just made these small acknowledging sounds without actually engaging. His coffee got cold while he tried to figure out what was happening. At work that afternoon, Valeria stopped by my desk and did this double take. She asked if I got new clothes, and I looked down at my outfit like I was just noticing it myself. I'd actually spent time that morning picking out something I liked instead of something I thought Ryan might compliment, which he never did anyway. Valeria said I looked really put together and asked if something changed. I told her I was just trying to dress for myself instead of hoping someone else would notice. She got this knowing look on her face and sat on the edge of my desk. She said she'd noticed I seemed different lately, lighter somehow. I realized she was right. I'd been putting effort into my appearance because it made me feel good, not because I was waiting for Ryan to say something nice. He used to tell random women at restaurants that their dresses looked great, while telling me I looked fine when I wore something new. Valeria asked if things were okay with Ryan, and I said they were complicated. She nodded like she understood without needing more explanation. She invited me to lunch later that week, and I said yes immediately, instead of checking if Ryan had plans first. My phone started buzzing during my afternoon meeting. I had it face down on the table, but I could feel it vibrating every few minutes. When the meeting ended, I checked and saw 17 texts from Ryan, all asking about my evening plans. The first few were casual, asking what time I'd be home. Then they got more specific, asking if I wanted to do dinner. Then they got almost frantic, asking if I was mad at him. I waited until the end of my workday to respond. I typed busy tonight and sent it without any other explanation or emoji or softening language. 3 dots appeared immediately showing he was typing. They disappeared and reappeared 4 times. Finally, he sent back asking busy with what. I put my phone in my bag without responding. He used to give me these exact same vague non-answers when I asked about his plans. He'd say he was going out and wouldn't tell me where until I asked 3 times. He'd say he was meeting people and wouldn't say who until I felt like I was interrogating him. Now he was getting the same treatment, and I could practically feel his confusion through the phone. I went to the gym at 6 instead of our usual 8 o'clock couples workout time. The evening crowd was different. More serious lifters and fewer people just going through the motions. I set up at the squat rack and started my warm-up sets. The trainer who usually worked the floor came over and commented that he hadn't seen me at this time before. He asked if I changed my routine, and I said I was trying something different. He watched me do a set and said my form looked more focused than usual, more confident. He asked if I'd been working with someone new, and I said no, just working on myself. He nodded approvingly and told me to let him know if I needed a spot. I felt strong and capable in a way I hadn't felt in months. Ryan used to watch me struggle with weights I didn't understand while he spent 40 minutes helping random women perfect their deadlift form. He'd tell me independence was important when I asked for help. Now I was figuring it out myself and discovering I was stronger than I thought. I was setting up for bench press when someone asked if I was using the equipment next. I looked up and saw this guy about my age with a gym bag over his shoulder. I said I had one more set and he could work in after. He thanked me and introduced himself as Troy. We ended up chatting between sets about workout goals and training programs. He treated me like a normal person worth talking to, not like some delicate thing that needed special handling. He didn't perform exaggerated politeness or fall over himself being helpful. He just had a regular conversation about fitness and recovery times, and whether protein powder actually made a difference. He asked how long I'd been lifting, and I told him about a year, but I was still learning. He shared some tips about progressive overload without being condescending or mansplaining. We talked about our favorite exercises, and he laughed when I said I hated burpees with a passion. It was easy and comfortable, and I realized this was how Ryan talked to every woman except me. I was laughing at something Troy said about gym bros who grunt too loud when I felt eyes on me. I looked across the room and saw Ryan standing near the cardio equipment, just standing there watching us. He wasn't working out or stretching or doing anything except staring at me and Troy with this expression I'd never seen on his face before. His jaw was tight and his hands were clenched at his sides. It was actual jealousy, real and visible and completely new. He'd never looked jealous in 2 years together. He never cared when other guys talked to me at parties or bought me drinks at bars. He'd always seemed secure to the point of indifference. But now he was watching me laugh with Troy, and his whole body was tense. Troy noticed me looking across the room and asked if I knew that guy. I said it was complicated. Troy said the guy looked upset, and I said that wasn't my problem right now. Ryan started walking toward us, but I told Troy it was nice meeting him and I had to go. I grabbed my stuff and left through the side exit before Ryan could reach me. That night, Ryan tried to have a serious conversation about us. He sat down on the couch where I was reading and said we needed to talk. He asked what was happening with us and why I was being so distant. He said he felt like he was losing me and didn't understand what changed. I marked my page in my book and looked at him the way he used to look at me when I tried to discuss our relationship problems, like I was interrupting something more important. I told him I was tired and going to bed early. He said it was only 9:30 and we never went to bed this early. I said I was exhausted and needed sleep. He tried to keep talking, but I stood up and walked to the bedroom. He followed me, asking if we could please just talk for 5 minutes. I said maybe tomorrow and closed the door. Through the door, I heard him standing there for a long moment before finally walking away. This was the same dismissive tone he'd used on me dozens of times when I wanted to address issues. He'd say he was too tired or too busy or too stressed to get into it right now. He'd shut down conversations before they started and leave me feeling like my concerns didn't matter. Now he was on the other side of that closed door, and I wondered if he finally understood how it felt. The next week, I started having lunch with Valeria twice a week. We'd go to this sandwich place near our office and sit outside when the weather was nice. She told me about her girlfriend who she'd been dating for 3 years. Her girlfriend wrote her love notes and left them in unexpected places, tucked into her lunch bag or stuck to the bathroom mirror. Her girlfriend remembered that Valeria changed her coffee order from regular to decaf 6 months ago because of anxiety. Her girlfriend planned surprise dates to museums and botanical gardens because she knew Valeria loved art and nature. I listened and felt this ache in my chest because I realized what I'd been missing wasn't just respect, but genuine thoughtfulness. Ryan remembered Melissa's birthday and brought her flowers, but forgot I switched from lattes to cappuccinos. Ryan knew Jessica's favorite music and played it during their car rides, but couldn't remember what genre I liked. Ryan spent 3 months hunting down a rare album for Amy, but grabbed a gift card with the price sticker still on for my birthday. Valeria asked if Ryan did thoughtful things for me, and I couldn't think of a single example from the past year. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand and said, I deserved someone who paid attention. I came home from lunch with Valeria and found a bouquet of roses on the kitchen counter. Ryan stood by the sink watching me with this hopeful look I hadn't seen in months. He said he remembered I liked roses and wanted to do something nice for me. I walked over and touched one of the petals. They were pretty, deep red and fresh from an actual flower shop, not the grocery store bunches he used to grab for Melissa. I said thank you and pulled a vase from under the sink. Ryan kept standing there like he expected something more, maybe tears or a hug or that grateful smile I used to give him back when small gestures still meant something. I filled the vase with water and arranged the flowers carefully, taking my time with each stem. He asked if I liked them, and I said they were nice. He said he should have been doing this all along, and I said okay. I put the vase on the dining table and went to change out of my work clothes. Behind me, I heard him let out this frustrated breath, but I kept walking to the bedroom. The flowers sat on the table for the next 3 days, and I'd look at them sometimes while eating breakfast, thinking about how 18 months ago these would have made me cry with happiness, but now they just felt like panic dressed up as romance. Friday night, Ryan asked if I wanted to go to our regular Italian place downtown. I said sure and got ready in the bathroom, putting on makeup and a dress I hadn't worn in months. He kept trying to talk to me through the door, but I just hummed responses until I was done. We drove there in silence except for the radio playing some song I didn't recognize. At the restaurant, the hostess greeted us by name like always and started to lead us to our usual table. Ryan moved ahead to pull out my chair, but I slid into my seat before he could reach it. The hostess looked confused for a second, glancing between us, then handed us menus and left. Our regular waitress came over and Ryan opened his mouth to order for both of us like he'd done for 2 years. But I spoke first. I ordered the chicken marsala and a glass of white wine without looking at him. The waitress wrote it down and turned to Ryan, who just sat there staring at me with his mouth still half open. She asked if he needed a minute, and he blinked and ordered his usual pasta. After she left, he said I'd never ordered the chicken before, and I said I felt like trying something new. He started to say something else, but I pulled out my phone and scrolled through messages from Valeria about our plans for next week. The food came and I ate slowly, tasting each bite, while Ryan barely touched his plate. He kept watching me like I was a stranger he was trying to figure out. I asked if his pasta was okay, and he said it was fine. The waitress came by twice to refill water glasses and check on us, and both times she gave me this look like she was trying to understand what changed. Ryan used to chat with her about her classes and her roommate drama and her car problems, spending 10 minutes being charming while I sat there invisible. Tonight he didn't say anything to her beyond thank you. On the drive home, he asked if something was wrong with the dinner, and I said it was good. He said I seemed distant, and I said I was just tired. He gripped the steering wheel tighter, but didn't push it. Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang while I was at my desk organizing files. The caller ID showed Leo, Ryan's best friend since college. I almost didn't answer because Leo always called Ryan first, but something made me pick up. He asked if I had a minute to talk, and I said sure. He sounded weird, stressed in a way I'd never heard from him before. He said Ryan had been a mess at work for the past 2 weeks, missing deadlines and zoning out in meetings and forgetting important calls. He said Ryan kept talking about how I was different and distant and he didn't know what to do. Leo asked what was going on between us because Ryan was falling apart. I leaned back in my chair and looked out the window at the parking lot below. I told Leo I was giving Ryan the same energy he'd been giving me for 2 years. Leo was quiet for a second, then asked what I meant. I said Ryan treated every woman he met better than he treated me, that he remembered coffee orders for baristas, and brought flowers for coworkers, and spent hours helping strangers at the gym, while telling me to figure things out myself. I said he pulled out chairs for waitresses and sent drinks to random women at restaurants, and wrote heartfelt birthday posts for his friend's girlfriend, while giving me a gift card with the price sticker still on. Leo said he didn't know it was that bad, and I said that's because Ryan only showed people the charming version of himself. I told Leo I was just being to Ryan what Ryan had been to me. Nothing special. Leo said he understood but asked if I still loved Ryan. I said I honestly didn't know anymore. He said Ryan was really trying now, and I said I noticed. He asked what Ryan needed to do to fix this, and I said I didn't know if it could be fixed. We hung up after that, and I went back to my files but couldn't focus on anything for the rest of the afternoon. Friday night, Valeria texted asking if I wanted to go out with her and some friends from her girlfriend's work. I said yes immediately and started getting ready, picking out my favorite jeans and a black top that made me feel confident. Ryan came home while I was doing my makeup and asked what I was doing tonight. I said going out with friends and kept applying mascara. He asked which friends, and I said Valeria and some other people. He asked where we were going, and I said probably a bar downtown. He stood in the bathroom doorway watching me and asked if I wanted him to come. I said it was a girls' night and kept getting ready. He said we hadn't gone out together in weeks, and I said he'd gone out with coworkers plenty of times without me. He said that was different, and I said it really wasn't. I finished my makeup and grabbed my purse and keys. He followed me to the front door asking what time I'd be home, and I said I wasn't sure. I left before he could say anything else. At the bar, Valeria introduced me to her girlfriend's coworkers, 3 women around our age who were funny and easy to talk to. We got drinks and found a table in the corner and talked about everything except relationships. One of them told this story about her boss that had us all laughing, so hard I had to wipe tears from my eyes. I felt lighter than I had in months, like I could breathe deeper. Around 9, I took a group photo of all of us laughing and posted it to social media with no caption. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. Ryan called once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. I let it go to voicemail every time. Around 10:30, I finally texted back saying I was having fun and not to wait up. He responded immediately asking who I was with and when I was coming home. I put my phone on silent and ordered another drink. I got home just after midnight and found every light in the apartment on. Ryan was sitting on the couch, still dressed in his work clothes from earlier. He stood up when I walked in and asked where I'd been. I set out with friends like I told him. He asked who specifically, and I named Valeria and her girlfriend's coworkers. He asked why I didn't invite him, and I walked to the kitchen to get water. He followed me, asking again why he couldn't come. I turned around and looked at him standing there with this desperate, confused expression. I reminded him about the time he went to happy hour with Jessica and her friends and told me I wouldn't fit in with that crowd. I reminded him about the weekend he went to a concert with coworkers and said I'd be bored because I didn't know the band. I reminded him about the dinner party at his friend's house where he said I didn't need to come because it was mostly his work people and I wouldn't have anyone to talk to. I listed 6 different times over the past 2 years when he went out without me and gave me some excuse about why I wouldn't enjoy it or wouldn't fit in. His face went pale and he said those situations were different. I asked how they were different and he couldn't come up with an answer. I finished my water and said I was going to bed. He said we needed to talk about what was happening with us and I said maybe tomorrow. He reached for my hand, but I moved past him toward the bedroom. Saturday morning, Ryan made coffee and brought me a cup in bed. I thanked him and sat up to drink it. He sat on the edge of the bed and said he'd been thinking a lot about us. I waited for him to continue. He said he wanted us to try couples counseling, that maybe talking to someone professional would help us work through whatever was happening. I sipped my coffee and said I'd think about it. He asked what there was to think about, and I said I needed to figure some things out first. He said we could figure things out together in counseling, and I said maybe. He looked frustrated but nodded and left the room. I sat there holding the warm mug and wondered if I actually wanted to fix this relationship or if I'd already moved past it. The thought scared me because 2 years was a long time to just walk away from, but I also felt happier in the past few weeks than I had in the past year. I thought about Valeria's girlfriend who left love notes and remembered coffee orders and planned surprise dates. I thought about how Ryan only started trying after I stopped caring. I finished my coffee and got dressed and went to the gym without telling Ryan I was leaving. At the gym, I did my usual routine, starting with the treadmill, then moving to weights. I was setting up for bench press when someone asked if I was using the equipment next to me. I looked up and saw a guy around my age with kind eyes and an easy smile. I said no, go ahead, and he thanked me and started setting up his weights. We worked out near each other for a while and he asked if I could spot him for his last set. I said sure and moved over to help. After he finished, he introduced himself as Troy and thanked me for the spot. We started talking about workout routines and goals, and he was easy to talk to, treating me like a normal person having a conversation, not performing some exaggerated politeness. He asked if I came to this gym regularly, and I said I'd been coming more often lately. He said he'd noticed me around but didn't want to interrupt my workouts. We talked for another 10 minutes about different training methods, and then he asked if he could get my number to maybe work out together sometime. I hesitated for just a second thinking about Ryan, but then I pulled out my phone and gave Troy my number. He said he'd text me to set something up, and I said that sounded good. Walking to my car afterward, I felt this strange mix of guilt and excitement, not because I wanted to date Troy, but because it felt good to have someone show genuine interest in getting to know me. That evening, Ryan and I ordered takeout and ate at the dining table. My phone buzzed with a text and I glanced at the screen. Troy's name popped up saying it was nice meeting me today and asking if I was free to work out together Monday morning. Ryan saw the name and his whole body tensed. He asked who Troy was and I said just someone I know from the gym. He said he'd never heard me mention anyone named Troy before, and I said I just met him today. Ryan's voice got tight asking what I just met him means, and I said we talked while working out and he asked for my number. Ryan put down his fork and stared at me. He asked why some random guy was texting me and I said he wanted to work out together. Ryan said that sounded like a date and I said it was just a gym thing. He asked if I was planning to go and I said probably. Ryan stood up and started pacing, saying this wasn't okay, that I was his girlfriend and I shouldn't be giving my number to guys at the gym. I stayed sitting and reminded him about every time he gave his number to women who needed workout advice or wanted training tips. I reminded him about the woman whose form he corrected for 40 minutes while I struggled alone with equipment I didn't understand. I said I was just doing what he'd been doing for 2 years. He said that was different because he was just being helpful, and I said so was I. He said I knew this was different, and I said I really didn't. I picked up my phone and responded to Troy saying Monday morning worked for me. Ryan watched me type and his face did something between angry and devastated. I finished eating and cleaned up my plate while Ryan stood there looking lost. Sunday afternoon, I sat in a small office across from a therapist named Dr. Anderson, who came highly recommended from Valeria. I'd made the appointment for myself, not for couples counseling like Ryan suggested. Dr. Anderson asked what brought me in, and I explained the whole situation. Ryan treating strangers better than me for 2 years. My decision to become distant and unavailable. His sudden, desperate attempts to fix things. She listened without interrupting and took notes occasionally. When I finished, she asked what I wanted to get out of therapy, and I said I needed to figure out what I actually wanted from my relationship and my life. She asked if I was still in love with Ryan, and I said I didn't know anymore. She asked what changed, and I said I changed. That spending weeks being distant and independent showed me I could be happy without constantly trying to earn basic respect. We talked for another 30 minutes about my patterns in the relationship and what I'd been sacrificing to make it work. She asked good questions that made me think about things I'd been avoiding. Near the end of the session, she asked if my stranger strategy was about changing Ryan or about changing myself. I sat there trying to come up with an answer, but couldn't find one that felt true. She said that uncertainty was telling me something important. I left her office feeling unsettled, but also clearer, like I'd started asking myself the right questions even if I didn't have answers yet. Monday morning, Ryan showed up at the apartment with a printed confirmation email for reservations at Meridian, the restaurant downtown with the 6-month waitlist, and the chef who won awards I couldn't pronounce. He said he pulled strings through a work contact and got us a table for Friday night. He looked so proud of himself standing there with the paper in his hand like he'd solved everything. I said okay, and went back to making coffee. He asked if I was excited, and I said sure. He stood in the kitchen doorway for another minute waiting for more reaction, but I just stirred my cappuccino and checked my phone. Friday came, and I put on the black dress I bought myself 3 months ago that Ryan had never seen because I stopped trying to get his attention. I did my makeup carefully and wore the earrings Valeria gave me for my birthday last year. Ryan came out of the bedroom in a suit and tie and told me I looked beautiful. I said thank you the same way I'd thank a stranger who held a door. We drove to the restaurant in silence, except for Ryan trying to start conversations about work and the weather and asking if I was feeling okay. I gave short answers and looked out the window. The restaurant had white tablecloths and candles and a pianist playing something classical in the corner. Ryan pulled out my chair and I sat down without acknowledging the gesture. He sat across from me and smiled like we were on our first date. The waiter brought menus and Ryan ordered wine without asking what I wanted. He got my second favorite because he still didn't remember my actual favorite even though I'd told him a dozen times over 2 years. When the waiter left, Ryan reached across the table for my hand, but I picked up my menu. He pulled his hand back and cleared his throat. The wine came and Ryan raised his glass for a toast. He said, "Here's to us and to new beginnings." I touched my glass to his without making eye contact and took a small sip. Ryan drank half his glass and started talking about how he'd been thinking a lot about our relationship and how he realized he'd been taking me for granted. He said he knew he hadn't been the boyfriend I deserved, and he wanted to change that. He said tonight was the start of him showing me how much I meant to him. I nodded and looked at the menu. He kept talking about all the ways he planned to be better and more attentive and more present. The waiter came back and Ryan ordered for both of us, getting me the salmon even though I'd been looking at the pasta. I didn't correct him. When the waiter left, Ryan leaned forward and said he loved me and he was sorry for making me feel invisible. He said he couldn't imagine his life without me. I put down my menu and looked at him. His eyes were wet like he might cry. I thought about Amy's 3-paragraph birthday post about bringing light into the world. I thought about my text that said happy birthday with no punctuation. I thought about the rare vinyl record he drove 2 hours to find and had professionally framed. I thought about the pharmacy gift card with the price sticker still on it. Ryan was still talking about how much he loved me and how he was going to prove it every day. Our appetizers arrived and I picked up my fork. Ryan watched me take a bite and asked if I liked it. I said it was fine. He asked what I was thinking and I said I was thinking about the food. His face did something between hurt and frustrated, but he didn't push. The main courses came and Ryan kept trying to restart the conversation. He asked about my day and I said it was fine. He asked about work and I said it was busy. He asked if I'd talked to Valeria lately and I said yes. He was running out of questions. Halfway through the meal, he put down his fork and said he needed to know if we were going to be okay. I finished chewing and took a sip of water. I said I appreciated the effort he was putting in with the restaurant and the speech about loving me. I said I could tell he was trying. He looked relieved, like I was about to say everything was forgiven. I said I needed time to figure out what I wanted. His face changed. He asked how much time, and I said I didn't know. He asked what that meant for us, and I said I didn't know that either. He asked if I still loved him, and I said I was trying to figure that out too. He sat back in his chair like I'd pushed him. He asked if this was still about the stranger thing and if I was punishing him. I said it wasn't about punishment. I said it was about figuring out if I could be with someone who had to lose me to see me. He opened his mouth and closed it. He picked up his wine glass and drained it. The waiter came by to check on us, and Ryan waved him away. We finished eating in silence. Ryan paid the bill and we walked to the car. He tried to hold my hand in the parking lot and I put mine in my coat pocket. The drive home was quiet, except for the radio playing something I didn't recognize. Tuesday at lunch, Valeria and I sat in the break room with our salads from the place across the street. She asked how the fancy dinner went, and I told her about Ryan's speech and the expensive restaurant, and how I felt nothing when he pulled out my chair. She asked how I felt about feeling nothing, and I said I didn't know. She put down her fork and looked at me. She said I seemed different lately. She said I seemed lighter somehow, like I wasn't carrying as much weight. I thought about that. She was right. Even with everything feeling uncertain and painful with Ryan, I wasn't waking up every morning wondering if today would be the day he finally noticed me. I wasn't spending energy trying to earn basic attention. I wasn't making myself smaller to fit into his comfortable relationship. Valeria said she'd watched me over the past month become more myself. She said when we first started having lunch together, I barely talked about my own interests because I was so used to putting Ryan's stuff first. She said now I had opinions about movies and books and weekend plans that had nothing to do with him. I realized she was right about that too. I'd been so busy being distant from Ryan that I'd accidentally found myself again. Valeria asked if I thought Ryan could really change, and I said I thought he believed he could. She asked if that was enough, and I said I didn't think so. She nodded and ate her salad and didn't push me to explain more. The next few days, Ryan kept doing things he should have been doing for 2 years. He texted me good morning every day. He asked about my meetings at work. He remembered I had a dentist appointment and asked how it went. He brought home my favorite takeout without me asking. He did the dishes without being reminded. He asked what I wanted to watch on TV instead of just putting on sports. He planned a museum trip for the weekend because he remembered I mentioned wanting to see the new exhibit. Every single thing felt calculated. I could see him thinking through each gesture like he was following instructions from a How to Save Your Relationship article. He'd ask about my coffee order at the shop, and I knew he was testing himself to see if he remembered I switched to cappuccinos. He'd compliment my outfit and wait for my reaction like he was checking a box. He'd offer to carry my bag and watch to see if I noticed. It all felt like a performance instead of genuine care. The Ryan who spent 3 months hunting down Amy's rare vinyl record did it because he wanted to make her happy. This Ryan was doing nice things because he was scared of losing me. I could tell the difference, and it made everything feel hollow. Saturday morning, I met Sienna for coffee at the place 2 blocks from our building. She was waiting at a corner table with 2 cups already ordered. Sienna was in her 50s with gray hair she didn't bother dyeing and a direct way of talking that I appreciated. She asked how things were going with Ryan, and I gave her the short version about the stranger strategy and his desperate attempts to fix everything. She listened without interrupting and nodded in places like she'd heard this story before. When I finished, she said she'd been married twice and divorced twice. She said the first time she stayed too long waiting for her husband to change. She said he did change for about 6 months and then went right back to his old patterns, because the change was about keeping her, not about actually being different. She said the second time she left as soon as she saw the same signs because she'd learned that sometimes people can change, but you have to decide if you want to be the one who waits around to see if the change sticks. She asked if Ryan had ever treated me well consistently, or if the beginning of the relationship was also full of him being better to other women. I thought back to our first few months. Ryan had been attentive and thoughtful at first. He remembered details and planned dates and made me feel special. Then around month 4 or 5, he started relaxing into what he called real love. That's when the door holding for strangers started. That's when the elaborate gifts for other women began while I got practical presents. Sienna said that sounded like he knew how to do the work, but chose not to once he felt secure. She said that was different from someone who genuinely didn't know better. She finished her coffee and told me whatever I decided was okay, but I should decide based on what I deserved, not on what Ryan promised. Monday morning at the gym, Troy was doing pull-ups when I walked in. He finished his set and came over to where I was setting up at the squat rack. He asked if I wanted to grab dinner sometime. I said I was technically still in a relationship, but it was complicated. He said he understood complicated. He said he'd still like to take me to dinner when I was ready. No pressure. Just as a chance to get to know each other better outside the gym. I said I'd think about it. He smiled and said that was fair and went back to his workout. I watched him walk away and thought about how easy it was to talk to him. He didn't perform politeness or treat me like I needed special handling. He just talked to me like a regular person he found interesting. I finished my workout and Troy was leaving at the same time. We walked to the parking lot together and he asked about my week. I told him about work stuff, and he actually listened and asked follow-up questions. When we got to my car, he said he hoped I'd take him up on dinner whenever I was ready. I said I'd let him know. He said take your time and got in his truck. I sat in my car for a minute before starting the engine. That night, I told Ryan I needed to stay at Valeria's place for the weekend. I said I needed space to think about everything without him right there trying to fix things constantly. His face went pale. He asked if I was breaking up with him, and I said I was taking a weekend to think. He said that sounded like breaking up. I said it was taking space. He started talking fast about how we could work through this together, and I didn't need to leave. He said leaving would just make things worse. He said he was scared I wouldn't come back. I saw real fear in his eyes for the first time since this whole thing started. Part of me felt bad. Most of me felt nothing. I said I'd be back Sunday night and we could talk then. He asked if he could call me, and I said I'd rather he didn't. He asked if he could text, and I said once a day was fine. He looked like I'd told him something terrible. I packed a bag while he sat on the bed watching me fold clothes. He asked if this was really necessary, and I said yes. He asked what he was supposed to do all weekend, and I said whatever he wanted. He said he wanted to be with me, and I said that wasn't an option right now. I zipped my bag and walked to the door. Ryan followed me. He said, "Please don't go." I said I'd see him Sunday. He stood in the doorway while I walked to my car. I could feel him watching me drive away. Valeria's apartment was smaller than ours, but felt more peaceful. She'd made up the couch with clean sheets and put out towels for me. She asked if I wanted to talk about it, and I said not yet. She said that was fine and put on a movie neither of us really watched. I lay on her couch that night and stared at the ceiling. My phone was on the coffee table, and I could see the screen light up with a text from Ryan. I didn't read it. Valeria came out in her pajamas around 11 and asked if I needed anything. I said I was okay. She said goodnight and went back to her room. I fell asleep easier than I had in months. No knot in my stomach about what version of Ryan I'd wake up to. No wondering if today would be the day he'd remember I existed, before he remembered every other woman around him. Just quiet and space and my own thoughts. I woke up Saturday morning to sun coming through Valeria's windows and the smell of coffee brewing. She was already up making breakfast. I came into the kitchen and she handed me a mug. She asked how I slept, and I said better than I had in a year. She said that told me something important. I knew what she meant. We ate breakfast and didn't talk about Ryan. We talked about her girlfriend and my job and the book club Valeria wanted to start. We went for a walk around the neighborhood and got lunch at a place I'd never been. We came back and watched TV and ordered pizza for dinner. The whole day felt easy. My phone buzzed once with Ryan's daily text. I read it but didn't respond. He said he missed me and he was thinking about everything he wanted to say when I got back. He said he loved me. I put my phone face down and went back to the movie Valeria had put on. Sunday morning, I woke up without the knot in my stomach. That's when I knew. Not because I'd had some big realization or emotional breakthrough. Just because my body wasn't tight with stress the way it had been every morning for the past year. I'd been living with that feeling so long I thought it was normal. 2 nights away from Ryan and it was gone. That told me everything I needed to know about what the relationship had been costing me. Valeria made coffee again and I sat at her kitchen table looking at my phone. Ryan had sent another text at midnight. He said he couldn't sleep and he kept thinking about all the ways he'd messed up. He said he finally understood that he'd been treating me like I was already one instead of someone he needed to keep choosing every day. He said he was going to spend the rest of his life making it up to me if I gave him the chance. I read it twice. The words were right. He was saying all the things I'd wanted to hear for 2 years. But I noticed something. Every sentence was about his realization, his understanding, his growth, his plan to make it up to me. Nothing about the 2 years of pain he'd put me through. Nothing acknowledging what it felt like to watch him treat strangers better than his girlfriend. Nothing about how I'd felt invisible and unimportant and dismissed. Just Ryan processing his own journey to figuring out he'd been wrong. I showed the text to Valeria. She read it and handed my phone back without saying anything. I asked what she thought, and she said it didn't matter what she thought. She said I already knew what I needed to do. I said I didn't know. She said yes, I did. She was right. I knew. I drove to my therapist's office on Tuesday morning and sat in the waiting room checking my phone. Ryan had sent 3 texts overnight. I didn't read them. My therapist called me back and I sat in the same chair I'd been sitting in for 6 weeks. She asked how the weekend at Valeria's went, and I told her about sleeping without the knot in my stomach. She asked what that meant to me, and I said I didn't know yet. She waited. I looked at the clock on her wall and watched the second hand move. I said I didn't know if I was keeping distance because I needed to protect myself, or because I'd already left emotionally, and just hadn't said it out loud yet. She asked which one scared me more, and I realized both answers terrified me. Admitting I was protecting myself meant I still cared enough to get hurt. Admitting I'd already left meant 2 years were actually over, and I'd been pretending they weren't. She asked what staying would look like, and I couldn't picture it. She asked what leaving would look like, and I saw myself in a different apartment with different routines, and a life that didn't include Ryan. That image didn't make me sad. It made me feel lighter. I left her office and drove home. When I opened the apartment door, the smell of cooking hit me. Ryan was in the kitchen. The whole place was spotless. He'd scrubbed the bathroom and vacuumed and put away all the stuff that usually sat on the counter. He'd bought flowers and put them in a vase on the table. He turned around when I came in and smiled, but his eyes looked worried. He said he made my favorite pasta and got the bread I liked from the bakery across town. He'd bought ingredients for the breakfast I always made on Sundays. The coffee I switched to 6 months ago sat on the counter next to the machine. I put my bag down and looked at everything he'd done. I felt tired, not touched, not grateful, just exhausted. This was what normal looked like. This was baseline partnership. Remembering my coffee order and cleaning the apartment and cooking dinner shouldn't be grand gesture territory. It should be Tuesday. I sat at the table and he brought over plates. We ate and he asked about my day, and actually listened to my answer. He asked if the pasta was okay and I said it was good. He looked relieved. After dinner he did the dishes without being asked. I sat on the couch and turned on the TV. He came and sat next to me, but not too close. He was trying so hard and all I felt was tired. The doorbell rang Thursday evening. Ryan opened it and Leo walked in. He looked at both of us and said he wanted to talk. We sat in the living room and Leo didn't waste time. He told Ryan he'd been a terrible boyfriend. He listed things. The way Ryan treated me at the coffee shop, the rides he gave Jessica, the vinyl record for Amy, the Valentine's Day phone call with Haley. He said Ryan made me invisible for 2 years and now he was shocked that I'd disappeared. Ryan started to say something and Leo held up his hand. Then Leo turned to me. He said Ryan was genuinely trying now. He said he'd never seen Ryan this scared or this committed to changing. He said he believed Ryan finally understood what he'd done wrong. I listened and nodded. I told Leo I appreciated his honesty. I said I knew Ryan was trying. But I also said this decision wasn't about Ryan's effort. It was about what I deserved. Leo asked what I meant, and I said I deserved someone who treated me well from day one, not someone who figured it out when I was already gone. Leo didn't argue. He looked at Ryan and shook his head. He said he didn't know what else to say. He left and Ryan and I sat in silence. Ryan asked if I'd made up my mind and I said not yet. He asked how long I needed and I said I didn't know. Saturday morning I went to the coffee shop alone. Melissa was working. The place was quiet. I ordered my cappuccino and she made it without Ryan there to chat with her for 10 minutes first. I asked if she had a minute to talk and she looked surprised but said sure. We sat at a table by the window. I told her I was thinking about breaking up with Ryan. She put down her coffee. She said she'd wondered when I'd had enough. I asked what she meant and she said it was always weird watching Ryan talk to her while I stood there holding laptops. She said if her boyfriend acted like that, she'd have been furious. She said she felt uncomfortable sometimes, but Ryan never seemed to notice I was waiting. She asked why I stayed so long and I said I kept thinking he'd change back to how he was at the beginning. She said people don't change back, they just show you who they really are. We talked for an hour. She told me about her ex who made her feel small. She said leaving was the hardest thing she'd ever done, but she wished she'd done it sooner. When I left the coffee shop, I felt clearer. My phone rang Sunday afternoon. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. When I did, a woman's voice said my name and asked if I had a minute. I said yes. She said she was Ryan's mother. I sat down. She'd never called me before. In 2 years, she'd never called me directly. She said Ryan told her what was happening. She said she wanted to apologize. I didn't say anything. She said she raised her son better than this. She said she was sorry he made me feel invisible. She said she didn't know it had been so bad for so long. She said if her husband had treated her that way, she'd have left. She wasn't calling to ask me to stay. She wasn't making excuses for Ryan. She just wanted me to know she was sorry. When we hung up, I sat with my phone in my hand. Her apology meant more than Ryan's. It wasn't asking for anything back. Monday morning, I woke up and made coffee. Ryan was still asleep. I sat at the kitchen table and watched the sun come up. I'd been waiting for some big moment, some clear sign that would tell me what to do. But the truth was I'd been getting clearer every day, not in one dramatic moment, just slowly, like fog lifting. What I was learning was simple. I deserved someone who treated me well all the time, not just when they were scared of losing me, not just after they'd already lost me. I deserved someone who held doors and remembered coffee orders and brought flowers because they wanted to, not because they had to prove something. Ryan had to lose me to figure out I mattered. That told me everything. Wednesday afternoon, I met Troy at a coffee shop downtown, different from the one with Melissa. We ordered and sat outside. He asked how I was doing, and I gave him the real answer. I said I was probably ending things with Ryan. He nodded. He said he'd been there. He told me about his last relationship. 3 years with someone he loved. But she never made him feel important. He kept trying to fix it. Kept thinking if he just loved her better or communicated better or gave her more space or gave her more attention, something would click. He stayed a year longer than he should have. When it finally ended, he felt relieved. That's when he knew it had been over for a long time. He said the hardest part was admitting all that time was wasted. I said that's exactly how I felt. He said it wasn't wasted. He said we learned what we wouldn't accept anymore. We talked for 2 hours. When I got home, I knew what I had to do. Thursday evening, I told Ryan we needed to talk. He looked scared. We sat on the couch. I said I wanted him to move out for a while. Not forever, just temporarily. I needed the apartment to myself while I figured out what I wanted. He said no immediately. He said leaving would make it worse. He said we should work on things together. I said I couldn't think clearly with him here. I said I needed space that was actually mine. He argued for 20 minutes. He said he'd sleep on the couch. He said he'd stay with Leo. He said anything but moving out. I stayed calm. I said this wasn't negotiable. I needed him to go. Finally, he stopped arguing. He said okay. He said he'd pack some stuff and stay with Leo. I watched him go to the bedroom. I heard drawers opening. He came back with a bag. His hands were shaking. He asked how long, and I said I didn't know. He asked if I'd call him, and I said yes. He stood by the door. He said he loved me. I said I knew. He left. The first night alone, I ordered takeout and ate on the couch. I watched a show Ryan hated. I turned the volume up loud. I spread out across all the cushions. At 10, I got ready for bed. I lay down in the middle of the mattress instead of my side. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. Then I started crying. Not the quiet crying I'd done for weeks. Real crying. Loud and messy. I cried harder than I had through this whole thing. But I wasn't crying because I missed Ryan. I was crying for the 2 years I spent making myself smaller. For every door that slammed in my face. For every time I stood holding laptops while he chatted with Melissa. For every birthday text with no punctuation. For the pharmacy gift card with the price sticker still on. For Valentine's Day with nothing. For watching him help every woman except me. I was grieving the time I'd lost trying to be enough for someone who wouldn't even hold a door. I cried until my throat hurt. Then I fell asleep in the middle of the bed. Friday night, Valeria picked me up. She said we were going dancing. I said I didn't know. She said yes, I did. I hadn't been dancing in over a year. Ryan always said clubs weren't his scene. Too loud, too crowded, too much. So I stopped going. I forgot I used to love it. We met her friends at a place downtown. The music was loud. The lights were flashing. We got drinks and went to the dance floor. At first I felt awkward. Then the music took over. I danced until I was sweating. I danced until my feet hurt. I danced until I forgot about everything except the beat. Valeria's friend bought me another drink. We danced more. I laughed at something someone said and realized I felt good. Actually good. Not performing good. Not pretending good. Real good. I thought about all the things I'd stopped doing because Ryan didn't like them. Dancing, going to art museums, trying new restaurants, taking weekend trips. I'd filed away so many pieces of myself to fit into his comfortable relationship. Standing on that dance floor, I started picking those pieces back up. I woke up on Sunday to a text from Ryan asking if he could come by to talk. I stared at my phone for a long time. Part of me wanted to say yes immediately. Part of me wanted to block his number. I typed back that I wasn't ready yet, that I was still processing everything. I hit send before I could change my mind. 3 dots appeared right away, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, he sent back, okay, I understand. Take all the time you need. I read it twice. Ryan had never respected my boundaries before. He'd always pushed when I asked for space. He'd always showed up when I said I needed time alone. Now that we were basically broken up, he finally listened. The irony made my chest hurt. My therapy appointment was Tuesday afternoon. I sat in the waiting room flipping through a magazine without reading it. When my therapist called me back, I dropped into the familiar chair and started talking about Ryan's text. About how he was suddenly respecting my boundaries. About how it felt too late. She listened the way she always did. Then she asked me a question that stopped me cold. She said if my best friend came to me and described my relationship exactly as I described it, what would I tell her to do? I opened my mouth to say it was complicated, but what came out was leave him. Just those 2 words. Clear and simple. Leave him. The therapist nodded slowly. She asked me to sit with that answer. To really feel what it meant that my immediate response wasn't to try to fix it or understand it or give it more time. My immediate response was leave. I sat there for the rest of the session feeling the weight of my own advice pressing down on my shoulders. Thursday night, I went to Amy's vinyl record listening party. Ryan had mentioned it months ago when he was hunting down that rare album for her birthday. I'd forgotten about it until she texted me the address. I almost didn't go. But then I thought about how I'd spent 2 years skipping things because Ryan wouldn't enjoy them. or wouldn't want me to go alone. I put on jeans and a nice top and drove to Amy's apartment across town. When she opened the door, her face showed surprise. She looked behind me like she expected Ryan to be there. I told her we were taking a break. She invited me in and got me a drink. Later, when we were standing by her record collection, she said something that stuck with me. She said she always thought Ryan and I seemed mismatched, that she could never figure out what we had in common besides the relationship itself. I asked her why she never said anything. She shrugged and said people don't want to hear that kind of thing until they're ready to hear it. I listened to records for another hour and drove home feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Friday at the gym, Troy was doing pull-ups when I walked in. He waved and finished his set. When he came over, he asked if I wanted to go hiking next weekend. Just as friends, he added quickly. I said yes without thinking about it, without wondering if Ryan would be okay with it, without checking my calendar to see if Ryan and I had plans. Just yes. Troy smiled and said he'd text me the details. I went to do my workout and realized halfway through that I hadn't asked Ryan's permission for anything in weeks. I hadn't needed his approval. I hadn't waited for him to decide if something was okay. I'd just lived my life. The person I was becoming didn't ask permission to exist. Saturday morning, I sat at my kitchen table with a notebook and 2 pens. One blue, one red. I drew a line down the middle of the page. At the top of the left column, I wrote reasons to stay. At the top of the right column, I wrote reasons to leave. I started with the stay column because it felt harder. I wrote that Ryan was trying now, that he was in therapy, that he understood what he did wrong, that 2 years was a long time to throw away, that he said he loved me, that maybe people could change. When I ran out of things to write, I had 6 items. All of them were about potential, about what might happen if I gave him another chance. I switched to the red pen and started on the leave column. I wrote that he made me feel invisible for 2 years, that he remembered Melissa's birthday but not my coffee order, that he gave Jessica rides with breakfast while I took the bus, that he spent 3 months finding Amy's perfect gift and grabbed my birthday present at a pharmacy, that he sent Valentine's flowers to everyone except me, that he only started trying when I became a stranger, that I'd spent a month discovering who I was without him, and I liked her better. When I ran out of things to write, I had 15 items. All of them were about reality, about what actually happened. I stared at both columns for a long time. I knew which one mattered more. Sunday afternoon, my phone rang with Ryan's number. I almost didn't answer, but I picked up on the 4th ring. He asked if he could take me to dinner to talk. Really talk. I said yes because I owed us both a real conversation. We made plans for Tuesday night. I spent Monday feeling calm instead of anxious. I didn't rehearse what I'd say. I didn't plan how to fix things. I just existed in the quiet certainty of knowing what I needed to do. That calm told me everything I needed to know about my decision. Tuesday evening, I met Ryan at a restaurant we'd never been to before. Neutral ground. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at a table by the window. He stood up when he saw me. He'd gotten a haircut. He was wearing the shirt I always said looked good on him. We sat down and ordered drinks. For a few minutes, we made small talk about work and the weather. Then Ryan took a deep breath and said he'd been in therapy too. That his therapist helped him understand he'd treated me like I was already one and stopped trying. That he took me for granted because I was always there. That he gave other women attention because it felt good to be needed, but he never thought about how it made me feel to watch it. He said he understood now that he'd made me invisible, that he was sorry, that he wanted to do better. I listened to all of it. I appreciated his honesty. It was more self-awareness than he'd shown in 2 years. But I also knew that understanding didn't erase anything. It didn't give me back the mornings I stood holding laptops while he chatted with Melissa. It didn't replace the birthday text with no punctuation. It didn't undo Valentine's Day. Understanding was just the beginning of change, not proof that change had happened. I put down my fork and told Ryan I thought we needed to break up. The words came out steady and clear. I said I'd spent the last month discovering who I was without constantly trying to earn basic respect. That I'd remembered what it felt like to take up space without apologizing. That I'd made friends who actually wanted to spend time with me. That I'd done things I enjoyed without checking if he'd approve. That the person I was becoming deserved more than someone who had to almost lose her to see her. Ryan's face crumpled. He reached across the table for my hand, but I pulled back. Not mean, just clear. Ryan started crying. Real tears, not just watery eyes. He asked for another chance. He said he was different now. That therapy was helping. That he'd spend every day proving he could be the person I deserved. He promised he'd never take me for granted again. I believed he might mean it. I believed therapy might actually help him. But I also knew I was different now too. The person I'd been a month ago might have said yes to another chance. The person sitting across from him now knew better. I told him I believed he was trying, but I didn't want to go back to being the person who accepted scraps and called it love. We spent the next hour talking about practical things. The apartment lease was in both our names, but I said I'd find somewhere else. He could keep the furniture we'd bought together. I'd take my stuff and my books and the kitchen things my mom gave me. We'd split the deposit when the lease ended. It was sad, but also weirdly peaceful. We weren't yelling or blaming. We were just two people who'd tried to make something work and couldn't. I realized somewhere during the conversation that I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Ryan, not at myself, not at the 2 years I'd spent shrinking to fit into his comfortable relationship. I was just ready to move forward into whatever came next. I found a studio apartment 3 neighborhoods away from where Ryan and I lived together. The rent was higher than my half of our old place, but I could afford it on my own, and that mattered more than the money. The lease signing took 20 minutes, and I walked out with keys that were only mine. Valeria showed up on moving day with her girlfriend and 2 of their friends, and we loaded boxes into a borrowed truck. I'd packed everything that was mine over the past week, sorting through 2 years of shared life and taking only what I'd brought or bought myself. The kitchen stuff my mom gave me, my books, my clothes. The framed photos went in the trash because I didn't want to look at Ryan's face anymore. Valeria carried my mattress down 3 flights of stairs while I brought boxes of dishes. Her girlfriend assembled my bed frame in the new place while I unpacked books onto empty shelves. Each box I emptied made the apartment feel more like mine, and less like a temporary space. I hung curtains I'd bought myself in colors Ryan would have hated. I arranged furniture without considering anyone else's preferences. By the time the sun set, the studio looked like a real home instead of just 4 walls. Valeria ordered pizza, and we sat on my floor eating from paper plates because I hadn't unpacked the real ones yet. She told me I looked different, lighter somehow, like I'd been carrying something heavy and finally put it down. I felt it too. Every box I'd packed had felt like shedding weight I didn't know I'd been holding. The apartment was small, but it was mine, and that made it bigger than any space I'd shared with someone who made me feel invisible. Ryan texted 3 days later asking when he could pick up his remaining stuff from our old place. I told him Saturday afternoon and showed up early to make sure I wasn't there when he arrived. But my timing was off, and he pulled up just as I was loading the last of my things into my car. We stood in the parking lot looking at each other like strangers who used to know each other well. He looked tired. I probably looked tired too. We went upstairs together, and I watched him gather his gaming console and his winter coats and the stupid decorative bowl his mom had given us that I'd always hated. He moved through the apartment carefully, not touching anything that wasn't clearly his. When he finished packing, he turned to me and said he was sorry for everything. That he'd spent the past month thinking about all the ways he'd made me feel small and invisible. That he understood now why I'd left. I believed he meant it. I told him I hoped he treated his next girlfriend better from day one, not just when he was scared of losing her. I meant it too. We split the security deposit over text later that week. The landlord kept $200 for cleaning, but I didn't care. I was done sharing anything with Ryan. Troy texted me asking if I still wanted to go on that hike we talked about. I said yes because I needed to remember what it felt like to spend time with someone who actually wanted to spend time with me. We met at the trailhead on Sunday morning and started up the path through trees that were just starting to turn colors. He asked about my favorite books and actually listened when I told him about the fantasy series I'd been reading. He asked follow-up questions about the characters and the plot and seemed genuinely interested in my answers. We talked about music and movies and places we wanted to travel. He told me about his job and his family and his terrible apartment with the radiator that clanked all night. It was easy and comfortable and fun. When we stopped for water at the halfway point, he asked if I was seeing anyone, and I told him honestly that I'd just gotten out of a 2-year relationship. He said he figured as much, but he wanted to be clear that he'd like to take me out for real when I was ready. I appreciated his honesty. I told him I wasn't ready to date him or anyone, but I liked spending time with him as friends. He smiled and said friends were good, and we kept hiking. On the way down, I realized I wasn't thinking about Ryan or analyzing Troy's every word for hidden meaning. I was just existing in the moment with someone who treated me with basic respect, and it felt good. The coffee shop looked the same as always when I walked in Tuesday morning. Melissa was behind the counter, and her face lit up when she saw me. She came around and hugged me and asked where I'd been for the past month. I told her I'd been figuring some things out. She poured my cappuccino without me having to order, and I realized she'd always known my drink order even when Ryan didn't. She asked about Ryan, and I told her we'd broken up. She nodded slowly and said she'd noticed he hadn't been coming in anymore. She admitted she'd always thought it was weird how much he talked to her while I stood there holding our stuff. She said if her boyfriend treated her that way, she'd have dumped him months ago. I laughed and took my coffee to the window table. I pulled out the book I'd been reading and settled in with my cappuccino. The chair felt comfortable. The light was good. I took up space without apologizing for it, and nobody seemed to care that I was sitting alone reading instead of standing behind someone waiting for scraps of attention. Valeria came over to my new apartment that Friday with wine and takeout. We sat on my couch eating noodles, and she told me she was proud of me for choosing myself. I'd never thought about it that way before. For 2 years, I'd been choosing Ryan, choosing to stay, choosing to accept less than I deserved. Leaving him was the first time I'd chosen myself instead. Valeria said it showed strength and self-respect, and she was proud to be my friend. I realized she was right. I'd chosen myself for the first time in 2 years, and it felt powerful instead of selfish. It felt like the most important decision I'd ever made. We finished the wine and watched bad reality TV and laughed at people making terrible choices. When she left, I cleaned up the dishes and looked around my small apartment. Everything in it was mine. Every choice was mine. Every moment was mine. I'd chosen this and I'd chosen myself, and that felt better than any relationship ever had. My therapist asked how I was feeling about the breakup during our session Wednesday afternoon. I sat in the chair across from her and thought about it honestly. I told her I was sad sometimes because 2 years was a long time, and losing that hurt even when it was the right choice. But I was also excited. I was discovering parts of myself I'd forgotten existed. I was remembering what I liked and what I wanted and who I was without constantly trying to earn someone's attention. She smiled like she'd been waiting for me to get here. She said growth was uncomfortable but necessary, and I was doing the hard work of becoming myself again. I left her office feeling lighter. The sadness was real, but so was the excitement, and I was learning to hold both at the same time. The gym felt different now that I went at my own time instead of coordinating with Ryan's schedule. I showed up Thursday evening, and Troy was already there doing pull-ups. He waved and came over when he finished his set. We worked out together, talking between exercises about nothing important. He spotted me on bench press and didn't make it weird or condescending. He just helped when I needed it, and stepped back when I didn't. The trainer came over while I was doing squats and commented that I seemed really happy lately. I realized she was right. I was happy. Not fake happy or performing happy, but actually genuinely happy. I thanked her and finished my set and caught my reflection in the mirror. I looked strong and confident and present. I looked like myself. 3 months had passed since I'd started treating Ryan like a stranger. I was living alone in my new apartment, getting ready to go out with friends. I'd picked an outfit I loved without thinking about whether anyone else would like it. Black jeans and a green top that made my eyes look brighter. I did my makeup the way I wanted it. I looked in the mirror and felt good about what I saw. Nobody needed to notice or compliment me because I felt good for myself. My phone buzzed with texts from Valeria saying they were downstairs. I grabbed my jacket and keys and locked my apartment door behind me. The hallway was quiet. My footsteps echoed on the stairs. I walked out into the cool evening air and saw Valeria's car waiting at the curb. She honked and waved, and I jogged over and climbed in. We drove toward downtown with music playing and everyone talking over each other. I looked out the window at the city lights and felt completely present in my own life. I thought about Ryan sometimes, usually when something reminded me of our old routines or when I passed places we used to go together. I hoped he really did learn something from what happened between us. I hoped he was in therapy working on himself. I hoped his next girlfriend got the version of him that tried from day one instead of the version that took her for granted until she disappeared. But mostly I thought about how close I'd come to spending my whole life with someone who made me feel invisible. How close I'd come to accepting that as normal. How close I'd come to forgetting who I actually was underneath all the shrinking and accommodating and hoping. I was grateful I'd become a stranger to him because it helped me remember who I was. It helped me remember I deserved more than scraps. It helped me remember I was worth consistent effort and genuine care. The stranger strategy had started as revenge, but it ended as rescue. I'd rescued myself. Life was really good now. I was dating casually, going out with different people, and figuring out what I actually wanted instead of just accepting what someone offered. I was focusing on my friendships, spending time with people who genuinely cared about me. I was working on my career, taking on projects I'd been too drained to pursue when I was constantly trying to earn Ryan's attention. I was learning that the right person would treat me well from the beginning, not just when they were afraid of losing me. I was learning that love shouldn't require strategy or performance or becoming a stranger to get basic respect. I was learning that I'd rather be alone than invisible. I was never settling for less than that again. The apartment was quiet when I got home that night. I kicked off my shoes and washed my face and climbed into bed that was only mine. The sheets were cold, but they'd warm up. Everything was exactly how I wanted it. I closed my eyes and fell asleep knowing I'd chosen right. I'd chosen myself, and that choice had saved me.